So if you're anything like me, you prefer to actually own the data that you've stored over the many years. Well, the problem with using cloud services is that you don't actually own any of the hardware that your data is being stored on. The implication of this is that you don't actually have ultimate control over what happens to your data when it is being stored using these services. If you don't have final authority over your own data, it cannot be said to belong to you. Instead, it belongs to your cloud provider, and it only remains on their computer as long as it remains convenient for them to store it. If they decide to clean house, they may choose to free up space by deleting your data. If you use their services in a way that they don't like, such as publicly displaying data that is considered offensive, they may choose to deny you access to their services and or delete your data. If you think this is a stretch, simply review the terms of agreement for using Microsoft services as an example. As you can see, Clause 4 of their services agreement states that you're not allowed to publicly display a variety of types of content to include something as minimal as offensive language. An additional stipulation to their service agreement is you cannot communicate anything that's construed as being hate speech. So the problem with this is that Microsoft isn't exactly clear by what they mean whenever they say hate speech or offensive language, which basically opens up the door for them to deny services to anyone or delete any data which they basically don't like. So if you want to know specifically which services are covered under this service agreement, you can simply go over here and look under covered services, and you'll see that this applies to apps and services associated with Microsoft 365, and this also includes OneDrive, which is the topic of discussion for this video, which is a cloud service. All right, so most people will probably say something along the lines of, well, my cloud provider has never deleted any of my data or restricted my access to using their services, so I'm not really worried about this. But that's the equivalent of saying, my master treats me well, so I'm okay with being a slave. The very fact that someone else has that much power over you, even in principle, should bother you. Well, today I'm going to show you a way to take back some of that power. All right. So instead of using cloud services, you can easily and conveniently choose to just back up your files locally. So what you can do, what I would recommend, there's a number of software that you can use, but what I've used in the past and what's worked very well for me is using Free File Sync. It's a free and open source software that you can use to back up your data. And you can install this app at freefilesync.org. So I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the installation of this software as well as configuring it to make it as convenient as possible to go ahead and back up your data on a regular basis. So I will ironically be doing this for the Windows system, but I will be also making some Linux content in the future, as I do run Linux on a virtual machine as well as on bare metal. But for right now, we're just going to do this for the Windows system. So let's start by downloading it. Save that. It's pretty fast download. All right, so as you can see, it uses the new general public license. Go ahead and just accept the agreement. Next. It's going to be saving to program files. And as you can see, they don't, Free File Sync doesn't rely on ads. So they basically just rely entirely on donations. And so if you end up using their services and you find them useful and feel like you want to donate, definitely feel free to do that. Okay. All right, and that's all there was to it. It's very fast download. So the next step is to actually run the program. So this next part is going to go in two parts. We're going to be setting up program files. We're going to be specifying, what we're going to be doing is mirroring one folder to another so that it automatically backs up the data that you saved to that folder. You can set it up so that it synchronizes two ways, but I prefer to just have it mirror in one direction because that's what's most convenient for me. It basically forces me to use, it forces me to have two drives attached at all times, which in this case I'm actually just using a USB, but you can really use any external drive that you want. But by mirroring one way, if you disconnect a drive and then you try to synchronize both ways and one of your drives is disconnected, it's not going to mirror. But doing it this way forces me to work out of my USB and just back up to the hard drive. But I'm going to go ahead and set this up right now. So if you want to set this up, you can go ahead and just hit browse. This is the folder that you're going to be mirroring from. So for me, I set it up to mirror. Right, for the time being, I'm just going to use this test folder right here. And the reason I choose to mirror, it seems backwards, but the reason I choose to mirror from my external drive to my internal drive is that it forces me to have the external drive always attached when I'm working so that I'm constantly backing up my data. And I'm going to explain how that looks in just a minute as well. But you can choose to do this however you want, whatever works best for you. I'm just kind of going over what I do. So I also have a test folder on the hard drive. So I've selected it. Now you can go ahead and hit synchronize. So every time it synchronizes, by default, it's going to show this little notification that says it successfully. Even though there's no data to back up because both folders are empty, it technically mirrored the data from one empty folder to the next. Now, what you're going to want to do now, because what you could do at any time, if you want to, you can always go in here and you can always back up your data manually if you want. But I'm going to show you how to have this going in real time so that after you set this up, you never have to think about it again. So save as a batch job. What I would recommend doing, if you don't want to see that notification always popping up like you just saw, just click run minimized and make sure auto close is also selected so that you're not constantly having to see those notifications whenever it backs your data up. Go ahead and save this as, save it in the hard drive just right now. Okay, so now we've saved this as a batch job. So what we can do is go to the next step. We're going to run real-time sync. So we're going to set this up so that it's constantly backing up your data every single time you save to that folder. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. Go ahead and open. What you're going to do is you're going to open the batch job that you just saved. And what this does is it automatically creates a command line prompt so that it automatically backs up your data in real time. So you can go ahead and start that now, but before I start it, I'm actually going to go ahead and save this as well. To the same location, save. All right, I'm going to show you why I wanted to save that in just a second. So we can go ahead and start. And now it's running. So what we can do real quick to demonstrate that this is working, I'm going to go to my USB, go to my test folder. Whoops. I actually can just open up LibreOffice first. All right, so now I'm going to create a test file just real quick. Just type liberated. Save as. Whoops. Now, as you can see, we're in the test folder on the USB. I'm just going to type liberated XYZ. Go ahead and hit save. Now, if everything is running correctly, this should not only be saved to the USB, it should also be saved to the hard drive. So let's go here. Test. Oh, whoops. Oh, there it is. It just takes a second sometimes. All right, so as you can see, it backed it up to the hard drive. And you can keep editing the document and saving it as many times as you want, and it'll keep updating it over and over and over again. And just to show one more time, whoops, I didn't need to do that. Just to show you one last time real quick. Well, actually, yeah. You get the picture. I don't need to do a reiteration of that. What I do want to show you though real quick, because I don't want to spend too much time on this, is I want to make this even more convenient for you guys. So instead of constantly having to rerun this, because if I booted up my system right now, the service would stop. And I have to go in and I would have to turn it back on. Well, if you want this service to run every single time you reboot your computer so that you never have to think about this ever again, your data is always just being backed up in real time automatically all the time, simply cut this service. You can hit the Windows R to run and just go to shell startup. Go there. Go ahead and paste that service right here so that it runs as a startup service. Now, every single time you boot up your system, this service will run automatically. And if you have it set up just like this, that's all you have to do. Every time you work out of that folder that you've mirrored from and you save something, it'll automatically back up. Well, that's going to be it for this one. If you have any questions or if there's anything else you'd like me to cover, just let me know in the comments down below. All right, take care.